Episode of Demystify Selling with Microsoft. And I'm super excited to have a repeat guest back, Carson Heedy. Welcome today.
Rob, it's always good to be with you, my friend. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm real excited for our discussion today. But just before we start, for those that don't know you, could you just take a minute and introduce yourself and please touch on the books that you've written? For
Sure,
me, those are
absolutely.
a big part of my learning. So
I love it. Thank you, Rob. So, briefly about me, Carson Heady. I've been with Microsoft for 10 years and been in multiple different roles. Currently, I'm the managing director for the Americas team for Microsoft Tech for Social Impact. We support over 400 nonprofits in the US and Canada. I like to call us the best kept secret. It's an amazing team, amazing cause. I recently was in the enterprise commercial space, leading a team that supported med device organizations. I've supported healthcare and multiple other industry verticals over the last several years in enterprise and also in SMC, so small, mid-size, and corporate. I've written 4 books on sales and leadership, the latest and most popular being Salesmen on Fire. And I co-host or host 3 podcasts as well, Mastering Modern Selling, Connected Teamwork, and Salesmen on Fire. So really excited to be here.
yeah, no, I'm excited for our conversation. And what prompted this is that I talk to a lot of partners every day, and partners at this point in time are thinking about their kids are finishing school, they're thinking about their summer vacations, and they're asking me, well, I'd like to get some meetings with Microsoft. And I'm like, well, you need to think about what time of year it is for Microsoft. So maybe you could share with us what time of year it is for Microsoft and kind of what's top of mind for you today.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, Rob, this is easy to talk about because we're living it right now. And you and I were talking, before, in the green room before we came in. It's mass chaos right now for a lot of Microsoft sellers, right? We've got really 6 weeks, and the year is done, and a lot of our sellers are being pulled into almost daily reviews to look at what's left, what's viable, what needs to be done to kind of push anything that is across the goal line here in these final weeks. So there is definite seasonality to Microsoft's year. And I think the smart and savvy sellers are also looking at planting the seed into FY25. Also want to give a big shout out. I know Wall Street likes our earnings report. So, good things happening today with the stock. But no, I think the key element is really thinking about from a Microsoft vantage point, the shoes that they're wearing right now. If you really want to show up big for a Microsoft seller, any type of deal or something to advance a deal, right now we still have line of sight to funding and ACO and leveraging Microsoft technology centers are all hands on deck right now to jump in and do things that will get additional revenue realized here in this fiscal year. But the other element is, again, I know that there is seasonality to a lot of other individual people's business. Understanding the seasonalities of the people that you want to serve. If there's a Microsoft seller or a customer, knowing those cycles. I had one year where all of my deals came in May and invoiced June 1. So I spent much of June actually studying and looking at what worked really well. Right now we're also spending time figuring out what are our solution plays for next fiscal year? How do we want to execute that? So if you want to get a meeting with Microsoft right now, be asking about, how you can execute those solution plays. We get a lot of overtures, as you can imagine, of, the great things that all of you are doing. But if you want to show up big right now, understanding what are the new solution plays, how can you create some kind of tangible package or offering or workshop that you can partner with a seller on and extend that out to the masses. Those are the things that we're seeing a ton of success with right now.
I love that. I love that. There's a couple of things I want to just double click on. You mentioned the word sort of revenue realized, and that's really important. And I'd like if you could to just talk about why that's important to you as a seller, that it's revenue realized in your current fiscal.
Yeah, that's a great question, Rob. And I will tell you, going back, even a few years mentally, I created a program with my team called Plays That Get You Paid. And it was all about understanding all of the different people that touch a customer, touch a deal, and ultimately how they get paid. And a partner is a key element of that, right? And on the flip side, if you're a partner and you want to really understand, what matters to a Microsoft seller right now, it is their Mint. It is their incentives portal. that they're probably checking every morning right now as things kind of roll in and they get revenue and they understand how they're performing in these key pillars. The way it's built is all around growth, but there's also incentives and multipliers. And I will tell you just some tips and tricks here. Azure is typically the biggest driver from that perspective. And we've made a lot of great strides over the last several years, especially in how we quantify CSP revenue in that bucket. So our sellers, for the most part, they don't care if it's EA or CSP in most cases around Azure specifically, but there could be some benefits to a customer or to Microsoft on a very large MCA, Mac, Azure commit to consume. So knowing the nuances of that, knowing the priorities of what your Microsoft sellers and your counterparts are trying to achieve, there are ways that you can structure multi-year deals in a way that you unlock the maximum ESIF and the maximum ACO credits for your customer. And then you win and your Microsoft seller wins big time. Your customer does as well because they unlock incentives based on their multi-year roadmap. The other thing knowing as well is how licensing deals are structured and constructed. There's a lot of momentum right now around annual CSP, around structuring even an EA supplemental deal for multi-year, where customers will pay these midterm. And a lot of times we'll realize in our build revenue, the annualized amounts, which could be relatively modest. However, our incentives payout portal, we will realize a full 12 or 12 plus months out of that. So right now, our sellers are really going to care about anything that we can squeeze out of the year additionally from a Copilot perspective, Copilot Studio, ME5 and security. ME3 is going to be a big driver, taking customers from O365 into M365, on-prem to cloud, anything that we can realize from a cloud perspective. And honestly, one of the biggest areas in my most successful years at Microsoft have been years where I've made a huge splash in Dynamics and Power Platform, because those numbers, those quotas are usually set relatively low. So you can make a big difference for a Microsoft seller by bringing in even a relatively modest sized business applications deal, because it will make their multipliers go into hyperdrive.
Oh, that's so interesting. We think about sort of the core pillars of, Azure and modern work, but, don't forget that BizApps now with Power Platform and D365, that's a great point there. So
if you want to show up big for a Microsoft seller right now, send them a message saying, like, I want to send you to club. What would it take? What could I deliver? Because trust me, anything you can squeeze out of around Copilot and security, any net new Azure opportunities, but then big time, like I've had some great years in business applications in Dynamics, Power Platform, and it's been because of honestly relatively modestly set quotas and making a huge splash. You could literally send somebody to club by the way that would impact their weighted attainment metrics. And if you show up caring about what matters to somebody else, a Microsoft seller, a customer, whomever, your spouse, guess what? Yeah, you win points.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I do want to ask, you referred to a couple acronyms there, and maybe not everybody is familiar with them. So ESIF was one that you talked about. Maybe at a high level, you could talk about what that is.
Sure.
With broad brush.
End customer investment funds. So a lot of us are set up where, Microsoft has the ability to sometimes programmatically and sometimes based on opportunity, go out and request funding dollars to pay you as the partner. It's going to be very lucrative, and it's often aligned where, if we have a opportunity of a certain size, we can pay you a percentage. Right now, I will tell you, like, I know my group has a considerable amount on standby. We're looking to invest, so definitely keen and eager to look at that. ACO, so Azure Consumption Offer or Azure Credit Offer. So the ability to basically say, we know on your roadmap that over the next 5 years, your anticipated consumption or what we've scoped is you're going to spend X from an Azure perspective. So I can go out and claim this percentage that I give to the customers credits. So their consumption is drawn down. In essence, they won't pay for that amount of consumption, which is beneficial to them. It gives them that ability to, go down the path that we're going on, but not accrue expenditures.
And that's in line with Mac and the Azure consumption. Is that not correct?
That is correct. So often ACO and ESIF are parts of creating a Mac. And the reason that a Mac is so important is because, obviously when there is that revenue realized, Microsoft is willing to invest when there's a multi-year roadmap. If we know that we have the next 5 to 7 years on this Mac agreement, and we anticipate that this consumption is going to look like X, it gives us a better tail. A lot of our most important selling, and I tell customers this all the time, having been here 10 years, I know where the money is and I get paid to go get it for you. So
Right.
arm me with what you want me to know as I go back to the business and make the case to invest. That's my job. So, the better I know the roadmap that we're going to go on with a customer over the next 5 to 7 years, the better I can go back to the business or to the deal desk and basically explain, hey, this is where we are. Give me guidance, give me your feedback. This is what I think we need in order to make this lucrative for the customer. And that's how we make winning deals.
And I think one of the things that that highlights for me is how important it is for to have alignment as a partner with your Microsoft seller and be able to share what you learn from the customer and where you see the customer going. Because as a partner, you may have a different perspective. You may see, the challenges the customer is facing differently. So I think that's for me at least, that seems like a real value add.
I could not agree more, Robin. I'm so glad you made that comment, because here's the thing. Sometimes your role as a partner is so important because you can demystify Microsoft. And I know that's the name of the show. I think that's the key element is, a lot of times as a partner, being able to show up to a customer and saying, hey, I know how complicated this ecosystem can be. I think the biggest value I can help you with is the ability to navigate through that. And I will also tell you that from a Microsoft seller perspective, I realized early on that if a partner has a better relationship with a customer than I do, my job does not become earning the right to be that customer's trusted advisor right out of the gate. How do I empower and enable this partner to win? And that's the kind of relationship you want. If you show up to a Microsoft seller with a phenomenal relationship with the customer and you can help them get in where they can't get in, those are the types of relationships that kind of symbiotic relationship that helps everybody in the room. The customer benefits because now you've given them greater access to Microsoft. You've helped demystify what Microsoft can do for them. But then furthermore, you're helping that Microsoft seller. And frankly, again, it's the fourth quarter. We're being pulled in a million different directions right now.
Right.
We don't have the time for some things. It's an odd energy because there's a lot of stops and starts. There's like these feverish moments of activity, and then there's like these weird lulls where you're just like, oh my gosh, what do I need to do next? And so I think the key element is, depending on how you show up right now, if you can show up with a great relationship and you can be very direct and prescriptive with a seller on what exactly you need to move the ball down the field for this customer, that's going to make waves.
I love that. I love that. Well, what I'd like to do, Carson, is like to pivot a little bit now, and we've talked about how to help you sort of get to the finish line here in FY24. But if we look into FY25, and you alluded to it a little bit here around solution plays, but there's the concept of what Microsoft refers to as MSEM. And maybe you could explain that for the audience, and then we could talk about how to leverage that as we move into FY25.
No doubt about it, Rob. So the Microsoft customer engagement methodology, and this kind of got formalized a couple of years ago. What I love about MSEM is it's a very clear roadmap. It gives very clear definitions to what every role at Microsoft needs to be doing. It sets some defined swim lanes. And don't get me wrong, very good, high functioning teams will sometimes, do different things and they'll divide and conquer effectively. But what it does is it gives a very clear roadmap of where we need to be focused at any given point in time. I've predominantly been in the ATU, so the account team unit, the majority of my time at Microsoft. I had a stint in the specialist team unit, so in the STU. There's also the CSU, the customer success unit. And at any given moment, you've got your ATU, your account team unit. They own the all-up relationship with the customer. They're kind of the quarterback. They will, kind of start and call the play. They'll a lot of times have a lot of the senior executive relationships. I will tell you as well, one of the biggest things that has been an area of focus over the last several years, and frankly, it's been the only reason that I've been successful here is really the intentionality around doubling down on getting into what we call the other rooms of the house,
Yes.
engaging lines of business. And that a lot of times falls on the account team unit. We've got to be prospecting. We've got to be going out and creating that relationship. And then ultimately we do what's called listen and consult in that first stage of MSEM. So we'll create that opportunity, but when it's ready to advance, we'll pass the baton immediately in and read in our STU counterparts, so our specialist team unit. Now, the way that that's contrived, you've got modern work and security, Surface, you've got Azure, apps and infrastructure, data and analytics, app and innovation. And then you've also got your business applications, Dynamics, customer engagement. You've got Power Platform. So really understanding, what are these different opportunities? I've got the baton and I'm going to pass that. And the specialist team unit will work in conjunction with the team to drive to closure. Now, the other element too is you've got your customer success unit whose primary charter is ensuring adoption and consumption of these tools. And you've also got, the unified support team, which, our customers invest significantly in Microsoft. It's important to really safeguard that relationship, make sure we're bringing resources to bear, helping customers with implementation, with deployment, with change management, all of those different types of things. And that's really how MSIM takes you through the customer journey.
Right. And I love that. And, sometimes partners will say, well, do I have to change the way I sell? And it's not necessarily changing the way you sell. It's really just the journey that the customer is going to go on with you. And it gives you and Microsoft this sort of common language and sort of common understanding of how to move a customer through that journey to a successful outcome and solve their problems.
That's it. Really knowing what the sellers that you want to spend time with, the sales managers that you want to spend time with at Microsoft, knowing what kind of their governing principles are and what matters in their world, I think can really arm you with how you can show up better. And being able to reference them when you reach out to a seller. I can't tell you how many times I get messages from partners and it's like, hey, we're doing great in this space, take a look at this shiny new object, this solution we built and this and that. And don't get me wrong, that is great. I wish that I had all the time in the world to spend every bit of time talking to every partner that exists in the galaxy, because I believe that there's great things we could do together. But I also wish I had a lot more time to spend with my wife and kids. So I will tell you this, we as Microsoft sellers, we're very selective. And so sometimes it's honestly the words you choose to use when you reach out. Carson, I'd love to know your solution plays for next year ASAP. I'd love to plug in so I can really help you with the MSIM model or getting anything across the finish line in the next 6 weeks around Copilot, security, Power Platform. Where could we partner? I will tell you that would get noticed immediately.
Right. Yeah, it's you're coming in and you're as a partner saying, look, how do I add value quickly to your world? Because it's, we're all trying to move fast. We're all trying to get to the same goal. And you've got a lot of ground to cover. We all have a lot of ground to cover.
It's true. I mean, this episode is appropriately named. It is a race to the finish. And when that finish happens, though, the scoreboard just goes back to zero. Like the game never really stops. So, I think the key element, and I will point this out, I find it funny, and I think we do a lot better job of this now. In fact, I've got a big planning session coming up in May with our extended team and everybody who supports our team as we really dive into the FY25 solution plays and start doing prospecting mechanisms in May for next year.
Right.
We're doing a better job as an organization of doing that sooner and sooner. I remember back in the day where, we'd have all the events like MGX and, Ignite and Inspire. And, we would do all this traveling in July, August, September, and everybody'd be off in the month of July. Well, by the end of September, what would happen? Everybody was like, well, where's your pipeline?
Right. Mass panic.
Yeah, we've done a lot better job of not having that happen. So, right now is the time to be thinking about FY25 pipeline. We're starting to look at mapping out all of our FY25 renewals, right? Where are these compelling events where customers are, they're budgeting to spend money with us. Shame on us if we're not planning on those, sometimes prioritized based on revenue. or, as a partner, be thinking about, like, we've got initiatives, right? We've got these opportunities for next year where there's built-in compelling events, and no matter how good we ever get, that is where Microsoft makes the preponderance of its revenue in any given year, is based on those compelling events. So shame on us if we're not ahead of them, seeing, what are the Copilot opportunities, making sure that these customers are AI ready, making sure that we're helping them wade through and finding the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to AI use cases that are going to have the most impact for their organization. It's not time to boil the ocean. It's time to really get granular and focused with them. Get into the MTC, bake this out, do a workshop with you, bake this out, help them set up responsible AI, ethical AI practices. Same thing from an Azure perspective. Understand all of your Microsoft sellers' ACA targets. Because if you go out and you're prospecting into them and you're able to, sell CSP into these organizations, it can make all the difference in the world. I had one year where I only made my number because I crushed co-sell and marketplace revenue. And so
Right.
it can be so impactful if you understand that. But also, don't run it in a silo. Always think about how you could replicate the success and the successes that you've had. One of the big things that I talk a lot about partners with right now is how you evangelize what you do. You all do such great work. How can you really tell those stories, not just in an email to a seller, but also with social media and getting that out there? And I've spent a lot of time too over the last year, Rob, building out customer-facing webinars that I sent out to thousands of people based on one singular, really great use case or story that we've done with a partner and a customer. How can we evangelize that work better? So think creative, think outside the box, but think forward.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I mean, you touch on social media and leveraging that. I think there's just so much opportunity in so many different areas. And not to mention, I mean, you touched on Copilot. For me, that is just, it's such a relevant discussion. Every customer wants to talk about how they're going to leverage AI. And if we can bring that Copilot story to every one of these customers and do just like you said, is educate them and not boil the ocean, but take them through the MTC, host some webinars where you're educating these people. I think that's just a massive piece of advice right there for partners to start to prep for FY25.
Rob, we live in a magical time where you can open literally any door talking about security, AI, and data. I mean, it's amazing to me. And that hasn't always been the case. Yes, we had a big cloud boom a few years ago, and then we had some lulls. But right now, we've got this amazing, magical moment where every customer is thinking about these things. And if you can show up looking to demystify that for customers and demystify Microsoft's place in the world around these topics and open these doors, but also work in tandem with Microsoft in order to really be the solution for these customers as they wade through these really heavy questions that are going to determine, the future of their organizations and how they meet the people that they serve. Right now is a critical moment. Let's seize it together.
Carson, I love that. Every time I talk to you, I feel like I get a masterclass. So thank you again. Thank you for taking the time and sharing all this great information.
This doesn't happen when I talk to other people, Rob. I think it's just this magical combination that you and I have, but we bring the best out of each other.
I couldn't agree more. I just love getting time to spend with you. So with that, I want to thank you again, Carson, and we will hopefully talk to you again soon.
Rob, it's always a pleasure. And to the partners out there, hey, we've got some funds. We've got some opportunities. Give me a call.
Yeah, and for the people that want to reach you, there is Carson's LinkedIn. Everybody should follow Carson. The information he puts out there every day is massively valuable. So please follow Carson. And Carson, I will talk to you soon.
Thank you, Rob. Take care.